What we're going to do in this video is we're going to do our color correcting and grading, and then we will add a couple of other things like sharpness to finalize the look and feel of our project. So let's get into how we're going to do this. So I've gone through and watched the project several times. So what you want to do is create a look for your field shots, your studio shots, and then the house shots, because the white balance and the color temperature should be somewhat similar. Then you can make your adjustments after. So maybe we'll just start off with this shot, and we're going to be using scope. So if we do Command 7, that's going to open up our scope. So if you right click, you're going to see your waveform, which is what we're seeing now, and you want to be under Luma, and then you also have your vector scope, and this is going to be your line for skin tone. So we want this area to be on that line. So what we're going to do is keep it on the waveform right now, and we're going to add a simple color correction. So there's a couple ways you can do that. Down here you can type in color correct, so you can add a color board. So there's also different things. There's like colorize, color wheel, different things. But what we're going to do is click up here, and we're going to bring up the saturation. And again, this all depends on how you filmed, what camera you're using, which settings. This camera was shot pretty flat, so we took out all the saturation pretty much, and we brought down the sharpness. We brought down a lot of things so that we had more flexibility in post-production. So we want to add saturation. We want a lot of contrast, so we're going to go all the way to, we'll try 55 for now. And then we're going to take the color, we're going to grab the midtones, bring it towards the orange and red, and then shadows, we're going to bring it towards the blue. So you can see how that's already starting to look good. And we're going to right click, go to our vector scope, and we want this to fit on this line, be at about here. So for example, if we're over here, that's wrong. Without even looking at the image, I can just bring that closer to here, and then I know that my color correction is much better. So if we're over 100, that means that we're clipping our highlights, and then this is our shadow area around 0, and you'll see when I make these adjustments. So our shadows we want to bring down, okay, to about here, and then our highlights we're going to bring up, and this represents his shirt and his skin. So it's going to be the midtones, this midtone area. So we can control this. And we want this bright, so we want the highlights to be at about 90, 95, and then we want the midtones to be, 50 to 60. Okay, and then we'll bring those down, we'll bring that up again. So that's looking like a pretty nice image. And then it's just a balance of all these things while keeping everything inside. So if we go back to our vector scope, we're going to go to our color and just tweak things so that it looks the way we want. Okay, so we can add a little more color in here. And I think that's starting to look pretty nice, actually. It's looking pretty sweet. Add a little more green. So now we went from this to this already. So we're adding a nice color correction, and that's looking great. That's basically where we want this. Now, in terms of color grading, that's going to be a grade, so something that you add onto it. So our correction is kind of like a grade, but really we're just correcting the colors in the image and the exposure. So if we look here, when we turn on our color board, we're really just color correcting everything. Now a grade would be something like adding a teal and orange. So if we go to all of our effects, we're going to throw on a teal and orange. That will add a LUT, or a full grade. So what we're going to do is see the teal and orange, we'll turn it on and off. See how it soaks in more? And again, this depends on how you shoot, but typically when you film flat, it allows you more flexibility in post like we're doing now. So we're going to turn this on, and we're going to make sure that we're exposed properly, but we're going to turn this down a little bit. We don't need it that much. It depends on what you want. This is up to you. We're going to bring this to about, let's say, 27%. It's just the amount. So your exposure plays with your color correcting and grading. We're also going to protect skin, so this will protect the skin from being washed out. So we'll bring that to 50. Protect highlights. So back here, see all that color there. We want to not have that happening, so we're going to bring that up. We'll go at about 94. And And then the shadow area, we want to see a little bit more in there, just a touch. And then we will go back to our exposure here. So we're going to go to our waveform, bring up our exposure a touch. Okay. And we're going to make sure that this is inside. So that's looking pretty nice right there. So now we can see exactly what's happening. So we have our color correction, then we have our teal and orange. So we can turn that on even more. I think at 34 is quite nice. And it depends on what you want. I think the teal and orange is a nice little look. So what we're going to do next is add a little sharpness. So we're going to sharpen the image, throw that on top. And then we're going to add a Gaussian blur. So for this, we'll just add the focus. And what this will allow us to do, and if we hit Command 7, we'll close that board. We're going to point this towards the vegetables in his face here. We're going to bring this down to 10. And we're going to bring up the softness. Okay, and the emphasis we're going to bring down. Okay, so this will allow just whatever we want to be a little more in focus. And we'll just turn it down a little bit more. We're just going to add a little touch, just a little touch. Okay, so now, because we want to focus on this area, we can really play around with what we want here. So now we can take that and just make sure that things look the way you want it to look. Okay, so even with the color, we're just going to make sure that we have all the colors that we want. You know, we want this to feel alive here. Maybe something like this more. So we're going to copy it and we're going to paste it to the other clips that are similar in lighting, right? So not here, but the field shots, we can definitely paste those on, right? And then we're going to go edit, paste attributes, and we're just going to paste focus, sharpen, teal and orange, and color. So now we've applied those clips, and then we could tweak it from there. We're going to add it to our studio shot, okay? So that's a good spot. We can see everything in our shot here. We're going to paste the same attributes as the field, and then we'll work at getting the exposure that we want. So we're having the same look. If we look at our exposure, the highlights are pretty hot here. We want it to be bright, so we'll go a little bit above with the highlights. Now our midtones we need to bring up to see the peppers. Okay, so we're just going to play with these things. So bring down the shadows. We'll bring this up. And then we will go to our vector scope, and then we will get our colors back. Pump this up a little bit more. So for our peppers, I'm going to add this look. Okay. Our look to be. So again, something like this. Now our color's definitely way off here. That's what we're going to play with. We're going to bring down our blue. And see how we just want to get back on that line? So something more like this, right? So you compare that to this. It's way better, way better, right? And we will paste that look. So it's very similar lighting, very similar look. There we go. Look how beautiful that shot looks. Okay, so the highlights, we don't want to clip here because the highlights will basically be this light up here. So we want it to be nice and bright. We don't need the shadows to be too intense here. So that's looking good. So we'll let that render out and then we'll give the project a quick look and we'll see where we're at. So I'm just going to turn the music back on. We'll give it a quick watch.
Bouchard Gardens, from our field to your home.
Really, if I didn't go through all the clips prior to condense it to 10 minutes, I would say it's about 8 to 10 hours for editing. That's what I would bill a client. So I would charge about $1,200 for that, just to give you an idea. So it's all I have for you in this video. We will be exporting in the next one. So we'll see you there.